Hello, welcome to this Technocamps tutorial on Adobe Animate. This tutorial is part 4 of our road safety animation. So before we get into it, let's look at the first 3 parts and what we've created as a quick recap. So part 1 was the title, the scrolling text. Part 2 was the traffic lights animation with the car. And then part 3 was this subtitle to lead into the next scene. And we used the shape tween to morph text and shapes. And that's the point we got up to. Now the focus of this tutorial, part 4, will be the bone tool. So in Adobe Animate, the bone tool is really useful for animating figures, such as humans or animals, with connected moving parts, where the moving parts rely on the movement of the other parts that they are connected to. So if you think about a hand, for example, it's connected to the forearm, and the movement of the hand can depend on the movement of the forearm, okay, and so on as we move back through the body. Now this is an example of what we're aiming to create. So we'll rig a figure with different parts of the body using the bone tool, and we'll create an animation where the figure is the Lollipop Person, and they'll be helping children to cross the road on the zebra crossing. So a car will approach and we'll stop. We'll call the children across, and then once the children have crossed the road, we'll lower the sign, and then the car can continue to move. And here is an example of a storyboard that you could create in preparation for this animation. Okay, so we're laying out the 4 stages of the animation. So we're starting off with the Lollipop Person holding the stick, and the car begins to approach. Then as the car arrives at the zebra crossing, the Lollipop Person raises the stick to say stop. Then the Lollipop Person calls the children to cross the road. And then once the children have crossed the road, the stick is lowered and the car moves forward across the zebra crossing and off to the top left of the screen. Let's get creating the animation. So if you've done the first 3 parts of this tutorial, then you can open that file, the road safety animation file. If you haven't followed those first 3 tutorials, then you can go and follow them now and then come back to this. But you can still do this tutorial without having completed the first 3 parts. Okay, so that's up to you. So we're in the road safety animation. Let's go to the scene window. We've got our first 3 scenes. Let's add a new scene, and I'm going to call this one just bones to represent that it's using the bones tool. Okay, if you wanted to call it something like Lollipop Person, that's fine. And let's rename the layer, bones also. And the first thing that we're going to do is create the bone that we're going to use for the different parts of the figure. Now, in this example, we're using the same symbol. We'll create one bone that we'll reuse multiple times. However, if you wanted to draw all the different parts to make it look like a Lollipop Person in real life, you can do that also. Obviously, you just draw the hand as a hand, the forearm as a forearm, and so on. And you need to draw all the separate parts of the body. Okay, but just to make this a little bit easier for this example, we're going to use the same symbol. So let's create a bone. I'm going to use the oval tool, and I'm going to go for black with no outline. So I'll create a circle, hold it down Shift, and then I'm going to use the selection tool and use Alt to copy this circle. Now I'm going to overlap these circles to create the edge of the bone, and then I'm going to deselect and they merge. Then I'm going to use Alt again and drag them down whilst holding Shift to keep them in line to copy the other end of the bone. Next, I'll use the rectangle tool, still black with no outline, and we're going to draw a rectangle something like this. But because I want it perfectly centralized to the edges, I'm just going to move these out to the side. I'm going to draw the middle, something like that. Okay, so it's long enough to overlap both sides. Select a Control-Alt-2, and then do the same Control-Alt-2 for the top of the bone and Control-Alt-2 for the bottom. Okay, and there we're creating each part of the shape centered to each other. Okay, so we could leave it like that, but I'm going to give the center of the bone a bit of an indent to curve it in. Just something like that. Try to make it as symmetrical as possible. Okay, so I'm happy with that. We've used the circle tool, copied it 3 times, so we got 4 circles. And then the rectangle tool to create the center. So there's our bone. Now this bone is a shape, so we need to convert it to a symbol to use it with the bone tool. So select the shape, we click F8 on the keyboard to convert it to a symbol. And this symbol is not going to contain its own animation, so we don't need a movie clip, it's going to be a graphic. And I'm going to keep it really simple and just call it bone. Okay, so there's our bone. If we go into the library, I'll close these folders. Now there's the bone, and we can use that as many times as we need. Our body part is ready as this bone, so our next task is to create the figure. Now, as you said, we're going to use the same symbol for every part of the figure. So the task is to create the body. So we'll have the neck, the chest, the stomach, and the pelvis. The 2 arms, both made up of the upper arm, the forearm, and the hand. And then the 2 legs, both made up of the upper leg, lower leg, and foot. And if you wanted to go into even more detail, if you were creating your own image drawn more lifelike, not just using bones, you might also add in different parts like ankles or wrists or shoulders. Okay, so you can add in as many parts as you feel you need, but for this example there, what we're going to go for. So I'm going to do the chest first, so free transform tool, and hold down shift and resize, and I'm going to use that as the chest, maybe slightly smaller. And I'm going to use the same size for my stomach, so I'm going to hold on Alt and drag down. And I'm not laying them right next to each other just yet, I'm just putting them roughly in place. Okay, so I'm going to Alt again, and I'm going to create the pelvis by rotating this. Okay, now the neck, so I'm going to Alt and drag. Now the neck is quite a bit smaller, so we're going to free transform, shift, and reduce the size. And as I'm moving there, I'm using the arrow keys on the keyboard. Okay, upper arm. So I'll do this side first. As we're looking at the person, is to our right, but it's the person's left. So the upper arm is going to be a bit smaller. And then Alt and drag for the forearm. Again, smaller than the upper arm. And then Alt and drag for the hand, which again is going to be smaller. Now if you're struggling with the sizing, we could be zooming in, or you could go to the properties window once you select the shape, go to position and size, and then you can be using this slider to increase or decrease if you find that easier. Okay, but I'm going to zoom in a bit. Free transform, hold down shift, and okay, I'll use that as my hand. Okay, so there's one arm done, so we don't have to do the other arm, we'll just highlight to select those three, hold down Alt, and then drag them over to the other side. And you can see the shape of the body's coming together. Now, I'm thinking for the leg, it's going to be very similar to the arm. So I'll highlight those three and Alt and drag it down here. And maybe whilst keeping them all selected, just hold down Shift and make them slightly bigger, because the parts of the leg are slightly bigger than the parts of the arm. Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that. And I'm going to click on the foot, free transform, and I'm going to rotate the foot and move it to a position there. Okay, so the leg is done. Let's highlight those three parts of the leg, and then Alt and move, and then I'm just going to put the foot to the other side. So you can see the physical makeup of the body has come together with all those different parts. All the body parts are done. Next up, let's create a head. So with the oval tool, I'm going to keep a black fill and a no stroke, and I'm not going to hold down Shift. I'm going to go for more of an oval shape, something like that. Okay, and because we're going to be using it with the bone tool, we need to create it, convert it to a symbol. So I'll select it, click F8, it's going to be a graphic, and I'm going to call it head. And I had caps lock on for some reason. Head. Okay. Right, all the body parts are done, but not quite in line just yet. So I'm going to align everything to the center. So I'm going to click the head, Control-Alt-2. Now I've got to be careful doing this, because if I select it all and align it to the center, every part is going to go to the center. So I need to be a little bit more careful. So I can take the neck and the chest and the stomach and the pelvis. Now the the arms, I'm going to move into place with the arrow. And then to make sure that both sets of arms are equal in distance away from the center of the body, I'm going to select all 6 parts together, and I go modify group, and then I'm going to go Control-Alt-2. Okay, moved it very slightly, but at least I know now that the right and left arms are both equal distance from the center of the body. Then I'll select our group and modify ungroup, and I'll do the same with the legs. So select all 6, modify group, Control-Alt-2. Yeah, that looks okay. And then select the group, modify ungroup. Okay, so there's our body created with all the parts all perfectly aligned to each other and ready to work with. Now, using the bone tool, the idea is that when you move one part, whatever part of the body is connected to with the bone tool will move with it. Okay, so as I move the hand there, if it's connected to the forearm, we'd expect the forearm to move with it. Okay, so that's why the bone tool is really good for moving figures, because as you can imagine, when you move parts of your body, the other parts move with it, whatever it's connected to. Now, one other piece of good practice that we can do, and to make the bone tool a little bit easier to manage and control, is add an extra control point at the end of each limb. So at the moment, you could say we've got 5 endpoints of the body, so ends of limbs, so the head and the ends of the arms and the ends of the legs. So what we're going to do is add an extra point, so just a circle, that will be connected with the bone tool, but will make transparent, so it won't be able to be seen. So it'll be there for us to move and control, but the viewer won't see it. And as I mentioned, that's going to give us that little bit of extra control when moving the parts of the body. So I'm going to draw a circle and I'm going to make it red. And it's not going to be massive, just something like that. and I'm going to F8. I'm going to convert it to a graphic symbol, and I'm just going to call it control point, because it's going to help us with the control of the rig. And when I say rig, I'm talking about all the different parts of the body connected together with the bone tool. So we've rigged them together. So I'm going to select our Control-Alt-2 to centralize it. And I'm going to Alt and drag it down to in line with the arm. And then the same over to the other side. Now maybe I should have drawn this before aligning, but I think I'm okay doing it by eye. Okay, there, and then one more over for the other foot. Okay, so there are our control points with all our body parts. So as I move this, I'm going to expect the arm to move with it. Now the next step in preparation for using the bone tool is to adjust the points of reference for each symbol. So the bone tool relies on the point of reference because that is what it connects to on that symbol. So if the point of reference is in the center of a symbol, then the bone tool connects to the center. Okay, but if you imagine your body moving, not every part of your body moves from the center part. So for example, the upper arm would be connected to the shoulder or this chest area here at the top of it. So at the top of the upper arm, not at the center of the upper arm. So we're going to need to adjust that on all the body parts. So I'm going to zoom in. We'll go up to the head first and use the free transform tool to bring the point of reference down to the bottom of the head. Then the same with the neck. We're going to change the point of reference on the neck down to the bottom, which is where it would connect to the chest. So we're doing this for every part, and we're imagining that we're starting from the center of the body. So the chest here, we're going to connect all the parts out from the chest. Okay, so the chest we're going to keep in the center. So let's do the upper arms, and we're going to be connecting the upper arms around here, top corner. Then the forearms will connect to the upper arms at the top of the forearms. Then the hands will connect to the forearms at the top, so where the wrist, where you'd imagine the wrist to be. Now we'll keep the anchor points, those control points, as they are in the center. Now the stomach will bring up to the top here. So this is what we're doing for this example. If you're feeling, once we start using the bone tool, that some of the points of reference are not quite right, they can always be changed later on. Okay, so don't worry if you come across that problem, it can be adjusted. The pelvis will keep centralized. Now the upper legs will bring up to the top, so where they'd connect to the pelvis. The same with the lower legs, up to the top, where they'd connect to the upper legs. And then the feet would bring up to the top corner, where they'd connect to the lower leg or ankle. Now the points of reference are set. That is a really important step with the bone tool because, as we've mentioned, the bone tool relies on the point of reference of each symbol. So let's zoom out. Okay, so one more thing we're going to do before we start setting up the bone tool and rigging it. This person is going to be a lollipop person, so we're going to give him a lollipop stick. And we'll hold it in this hand, so the person's left arm. And because the hand will be holding the lollipop stick, we'll make this control point at the end of the lollipop stick. So we'll take the lollipop stick as the end of the person's limb. Now rather than drawing a lollipop stick, if you want to draw it you can, but because I've already drawn one, I'm going to go to that one and get it and copy it and bring it in. So that was in scene 3, the subheading, and it was at the end of the subheading layer. There we go. So I'm going to unlock the layer and select all of that shape, copy it, relock the layer before I leave it, and in my scenes go back to the bones tool and paste it here. Now your lollipop stick might be fine, but I'm feeling like mine's a bit too big here, so I'm going to use the free transform tool and hold down shift and reduce the size. Okay, so I'm going to line it up on the floor where the person would be standing. Okay, and I feel like the stick's a bit thick, so I'm going to just select the stick and hold down shift and make it a bit thinner. I think I'm going to do the same then with to make the head a bit smaller. Okay, make this the stick a little bit taller. And I'm being careful now as I'm moving the shapes to overlap each other, because don't forget, once they overlap, they can merge with the part below it. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I think it's in good proportion with the body. The stick is thin enough, and the sign is big enough. So we're going to imagine that the hand is going to be connected to the stick there. Okay, so I'm going to take this control point and bring it down to below the stick. And I'm actually going to be accurate and center align it with the stick. So I'm going to selection tool, select the entire stick and that control point, and I'm going to align not to stage, I'm going to align to the object selected and center align. There you go. I didn't move it much, but just made sure we're in line. Okay, so all of our parts are ready and we can start implementing the bone tool. Now, just before we do, let's just make contact between each part of the body. Now you can do this after the bone tool has been set up, okay, but it is a little bit easier to do it before. Okay, but once you've set up the rig, you can use the free transform tool to move each part individually. Otherwise, if you use the selection tool, once you move one part, it'll move the connected part. Okay, so I'm going to make everything touch. So the neck connected to the head. And as I move these different parts, I'm going to move them all together. So the the chest, we bring it up to the neck. The stomach up to the chest. The pelvis up to the stomach. And as I'm moving these now, I'm using the arrow keys on the keyboard. So the legs up to connect. And I'm making sure those points of reference are overlapping, touching the previous part of the body. Okay, what about the shoulders? So I'm bringing that down a bit. And in to make contact. Now I should have moved those forearms with the upper arms, but it doesn't matter, I'm aligning them. And the hands to touch there. Okay. Now, as you can see, the stick is now too tall, so I'm gonna just adjust it. Okay, because I want the lollipop stick in line with the person's feet. And bring that control point up. Okay, this lollipop stick needs to be a symbol, because as we said, we can only use symbols with a bone tool. So I'm going to select it all, F8, leave it as graphic, lollipop stick. Right, now that we've connected the different parts of the body together, I'm looking at the body and I'm feeling like the arms and the legs need to be a little bit longer. So I'm going to make some adjustments. Now we'll start with the character's right arm here, and I'm going to select the three parts together, and then I'm going to use the free transform tool to try to make it a bit longer. So I'm going to hold down shift and drag the corner. Okay, so that's looking a bit better. Yeah, okay. But now my problem is that I need to do the same for this arm. So rather than adjusting these, I'm going to copy these other three. So I'll delete these three. I'm going to copy these three so that I've got the exact same size. Now let me just check the points of reference. Okay, so this one is wrong, so I'm going to modify, transform, flip horizontal. No, that didn't work because the point of reference is there. So I'll just move the point of reference to there. Okay, how does that look on the body? Okay, so that's better. I'm happy with that now. Now I'll get these arms into position, but I'm going to make them extend out from the body so that it can start holding the lollipop stick. So I'll put that there and rotate this slightly. I'm going to do the same with the forearm. Bring it up to where it should be connected and then rotate it. And the same with the hand. Move it to where it should be connected and then rotate it. So it's going to be holding the stick. So when I'm clicking here and moving, I'm just doing it with my arrow keys to see what I feel looks best. So I'm going to rotate that a little bit more, the forearm, and then move the hand. Okay, so just moving all these different parts into position. It takes a little bit of trial and error and figuring out what looks best for you. Okay, so I'll do the same over here. And making sure that the point of reference of the shoulders is touching the chest. So I'm going to rotate that out. Now this isn't going to be holding the stick, but I'm just going to rotate the arms away from the body slightly. And the hand. Okay, and then the control point. Okay, so I'm feeling like the arms are looking a bit better now. I'm going to actually rotate, tinker with this even more and rotate the arm out. Now, this is all stuff we can do once the character is rigged up, as we mentioned. But I'm choosing to do it now, just before, because I want to do it before the bone tool is set up. Okay, so I'm going to move the lollipop stick into position with the hand. Now, some of this work that I'm doing now is undoing some of the previous work I've done, like some of the alignments and some of the positioning. But that's okay, that's the way it works sometimes, you just got to make some changes. Okay, so the pelvis, I think I'm going to bring a little bit lower. And then the legs. And as I'm moving each part, I'm counting how many movements I'm making. So that I can do the same each side. Okay, yeah, I still want to make the legs a little bit longer. So I'll highlight the 3. And adjust. Okay, now I need to do the same for this other leg, so that's going to be tricky. So I'm just going to delete those and then select these 3 and Alt and drag to copy. Now luckily the upper leg and lower leg, the point of reference is the same. The foot, though, I am going to swap sides. Simple as that. Okay, so I do like to make sure things are lined up well, nicely, but it's not a big deal here. It wouldn't affect my program massively. Okay, I'm just gonna move that down. Actually, now that I've made my character taller, I think I need to make my stop sign taller. So I'm not going to do this because it's going to take it out of proportion. So I'm going to double click into the new symbol which we created, and I'm going to extend this. So as you can see, when I extend it, it extends both ends. So if I hold down Control and then extend the bottom part, it's just going to extend that end for me. Okay, so that looks better. Return to the bones layer. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to take this control point down. Okay, so we did a little bit of work there, but I'm much happier with the way the character looks. Okay, we extended the arms and the legs to make them a bit longer, just to match the length of the chest, keep together proportion. So after some work, tinkering about and moving symbols and body parts into positions we want, we are ready to start using the bone tool. So in your tool window on the left, we're looking for the bone tool, and it's this one here. Now if you cannot see the bone tool, I'm going to click down here and I get some extra options that I can use, extra tools, or you may have 3 dots around here that you can click to bring this menu up. And in this menu you'll find the bone tool here, and you'll need to drag and drop the bone tool there. Okay, so I'll do it to show an example. So click there, all your 3 dots, find the bone tool, drag and drop into your tool window. Okay, so we'll select the bone tool. Now, when we're setting up the bone tool to rig the character, we choose a central point, like the chest or the stomach, and then we extend out to all the other parts of the body from there. So in this example, we'll extend from the chest to the neck, to the head, to the control point, and then from the chest to the upper arm, lower arm, hand, stick, control point, Same on the other side. And then as we go down the body, chest to stomach to pelvis, and then down through the legs. So I'll zoom in. So let's start with the chest, up to the neck. Now, when I'm doing this, you may notice that my bone tool is snapping into positions. So as I'm hovering over a symbol, it's automatically finding the point of reference of that symbol. Now, if that's not happening for you, you'll need to go to, and you want it to happen, okay, because it is easier when that happens. You can go to Edit, Preferences, Edit Preferences, and in the Drawing option, in the Drawing tab, we've got this option here, IK Bone Tool. Now, we want to deselect that, so we want to deselect Auto Set Transformation Point, so that we get that snap into the points of references. If this is selected, then we'll need to do a little bit more work and be more careful when we move in and drop in the bone tool, so that we have to set the point of reference ourselves. Okay, so make sure this is deselected. It makes it easier. Okay, neck to the head, and then because the control point is the end of the head, we go in head to control point. Okay, now chest to character's right arm, upper arm to lower arm to hand, hand to control point. Same on the other side, chest to upper arm to forearm to hand, hand to lollipop stick, and then lollipop stick to control point. Now down through the body, chest to stomach, stomach to pelvis. Oh, I missed it then. As long as you hover over the symbol or the shape, it'll find it itself. As long as you change that setting. Pelvis to upper leg to lower leg to foot, foot to control point. And the same on the other side. Done. I'll deselect the bone tool, so I'll go to the selection tool and then fit to window, and let's have a look how this works. So now that we've got this character rigged with the bone tool, whenever we move a part, it's going to move the connected part with it, as you can see. Okay, so edit, undo. So if I move the lollipop stick, it moves the character's hand with it. Now, as you can see, this can save an awful lot of time animating, especially if you're animating a character with all different parts. Because if you're animating frame by frame, for example, you'd have to move every single part for each frame. But with this bone tool, it really does help us with that animation of characters with different parts. Now, something you may notice, as we set up that bone tool, as we use the bone tool, on each symbol here, it transferred each symbol onto a new layer called armature_1. Now we'll do this whenever we set up or rig a character with the bone tool. Okay, so it's transferred those symbols from a bones layer into this layer. And as you can see, if I hide this layer, we've got nothing left on our stage. So that bones layer is now empty. Okay, and our character is rigged and is set up, ready to use. So a couple of things to notice. The central point, so our main starting point of our rigged character, shows up as that red diamond. And then the connection point of all the other symbols shows up as those purple connections. Okay, sure. Okay, so it's easy to see where we're connected, and it's easy to see the starting point of all our bones, the bones of what you believe. Now the bone tool, if we look at the armature_1 layer, as you can see, there's a tween set up on it. So the bone tool uses the motion tween, but it sets it up automatically. Okay, so every time you add a keyframe and move a point, it will automatically add that point on the timeline, wherever you've clicked. And as you can see, it'll automatically create the tween. Okay, so if I were to play this now, as you can see, it moves it with that tween. Okay, so it is really intuitive and helpful when animating with the bone tool, because we don't need to think about creating all the bits in between. We just choose the points that we want it to move to. Okay, so I'm going to undo what I added there because I don't want it. Now, a couple of things to remember. If we want to move a part of the body and we drag it, it's going to move the other parts with it. So if there's a point on the body where you feel the connection is not quite right, you can use the free transform tool, and that will allow you to move that part of the body individually, and it won't move the other parts with you. Okay, with it, sorry. So using that free transform tool allows you to do that. Now, if you try moving your character around now, you should notice the parts moving together, but you should also notice there can be a bit of strangeness going on. So for example, if I move the pelvis, I can twist it all the way around and get it up to the head. Okay, so that's quite difficult to do. If I move the hand, it pulls the forearm and upper arm with it, and it totally detaches from the shoulder. So again, that's not something that's very realistic with human movements. So because of the way the bone tool is set up, the connections allow things like that to happen. So now we're going to look at some settings that we can adjust to stop things like this happening. Okay, and you can use them as you want. So implement them if you need to, or keep things as they are if you prefer. Now, to make the bones easier to select, and also to make it easier to see the connection from a parent bone to a child bone. So for example, the lower leg here is a parent, and we'd consider the foot the child because the connection comes in this direction. So to make those easier to see, we can select the layer, the armature 1 layer, go to the properties window, so the frame properties window, and down here under options for style, at the moment the lines are set to solid. Now if you set them to wire, let me zoom in first. So select the layer and change the option style to wire. As you can see, it sets up 3 lines rather than 1. So the 3 lines, where the 3 lines come from is the initial connection, so the parent, and where they connect to is the secondary connection, so that child. Okay, so that makes the connections easier to see, the direction of the connection, and it also can make the symbols within the rig easier to select. Next, to stop a joint rotating, we can change a setting. So I'm going to zoom back out, and I'm going to select my character, and specifically select the bone connection that I want to stop rotating. Okay, so I'll zoom in again. Now that means I got to click on this connection here, so the connection turns green. Okay, so I'm selecting different connections like this. So I'm going to choose this central point, the initial connection, and in the object properties window we've got lots of different options that we can choose from. So here we've got joint rotation. Now you can choose that, you can turn that off and on. So having it on allows that joint to rotate. Turning it off, so reselect that bone connection. Turning joint rotation off stops that joint from rotating. So as you can see, I'm trying to grab this chest now and it's not rotating. And if I grab the arm, as you can see, making that change is stopping this central point, this central chest from rotating, so it's making that movement more realistic. So my shoulder can no longer detach. Sorry, my upper arm can no longer detach from the shoulder. So on my rig here, I definitely need that joint rotation being stopped on my chest on the center. So go through your rig and see if there are any points where you feel like you need to stop a joint rotating. Okay, so have a play around. Don't forget the undo option is a really useful tool. Okay, so think about the movements. Are there any parts of the body you don't want rotating. Okay, so I'm definitely going to stick with the chest there. So is there anywhere else? I'm going to keep that as it is for now. Let's try the legs, the upper leg. Right, so that's a bit odd, isn't it, like the shoulder. So my upper leg should not be disconnecting from the pelvis. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to zoom in a bit and select that pelvis connection to one of the upper legs. And I'm going to turn the joint rotation off. Okay, so that's better. As it works for the other leg. Yep. Okay, so as you can see, again, we're just trying to keep things looking better, being a bit more realistic. But at the same time, this is an animation, so if you wanted the leg to be able to disconnect from the pelvis, then that's allowed. Okay, but I'm going to go with this. So I've stopped the rotation of the chest and the rotation of the pelvis. With the next setting, we can control the strength or speed of each rotation. So I'm going to select a part of the body, so a bone connection here. Now when we talk about this, the strength or speed of rotation, let's think about the arm. Now imagine moving your arm up and down, so waving your hand from your lower leg and raising it up above your head whilst keeping it extended out from your body. So when we rotate it up and down, our hand moves faster than our upper arm and shoulder. Okay, so that's the type of thing we're going to try and control here. And again, it's in the Object Properties window, under Location, and it's this here, is the speed. Now it's preset to 100%. So on my limbs, I'm going to leave the end limb at 100, and as I move up through the arm, I'm going to reduce it by 20. So I'll keep the connection point to the hand as 100. The hand to the forearm I'll reduce to 80. And the forearm to the upper arm I'll make 60. Now, when you do that, you might not notice massive differences in how it rotates, but it will, again, make the rotations more realistic. Okay, so play about to those numbers. I'm happy with what I've just done there for the right arm, so I'm going to do the same on the left arm. So I'm going to do, actually, I think I need to zoom in there. So I'm going to do, instead of connection point to hand, I'm going to do stick to hand and keep as 100. Hand to forearm, 80. Forearm to upper arm, 60. And I'll try the same with the character's legs. So at the lowest point, so the connection points to feet, I'll leave as 100, and then work back in 20s. So foot to lower leg, 80, lower leg to upper leg, 60. And the same on the other side, 80, 60. Now, let me see when we rotate around here. Yeah, we'll keep that as it is for now. Now we'll zoom out and see how it's looking. Okay, so I'm quite happy with the movement of the right arm. And not perfectly happy with the movement of the left arm, but the other settings will change in a bit. Okay, quite happy with the movement of the right leg. Again, the foot moving the way it can is a bit off, but again, that's a setting will change in a bit. Okay, at least it's not detaching from the pelvis now, so that's good. Right, the head and neck, obviously, as you can see, they're rotating fine, but again, like the others, the rotation is quite odd, so we shouldn't be able to rotate our head all the way down like that. Okay, so I'm happy with the speeds that I've just set up, but now there's a couple of other settings we need to change. Next, we're going to look at how we can pin connections into place. So this stop sign, for example, I'm going to want it to stick to the floor. So I'm going to choose this connection here from the lollipop stick to the connection point. And under Object Properties window again, we can tick Pin. Now this will pin it in place. So as you can see, the connection between those two points, those two symbols, is now stuck. Okay, so the bottom of the stick is now moving from the ground, which I'm happy with. The movement here is a bit slow, it's difficult to move, but I think I'm happy with the way that it stays connected to the ground. Now you could do the same to a foot. If you wanted your character to keep his feet on the ground. Okay, and as you can see there, as I'm trying to move the parts, it becomes quite difficult. Okay, so decide whether you need to use any of those pins or not. So I'm now going to keep my foot pinned to the ground. So there we go, we've got rid of that. Let me just check. Yeah. Okay, but I am going to keep my lollipop stick pinned to the ground. And looking at it there, I like the way that when I extend the lollipop out, the arm moves with it. Next setting. So by default, each connection can rotate 360 degrees. So as you can see here, we can rotate the arm where it connects to the shoulder a full 360. But sometimes that's not what we want. So we can constrain the degrees about which a point can rotate. So we can select the connection. So for example, here the upper arm to the chest. And in the Object Properties window, we can go to Joint Rotation, and we've got this Constrain option here. Now with the Constrain, so I'm going to select this top on the head. With the Constrain, the right offset is the clockwise rotation. There. The left offset is the anti-clockwise rotation. There. So the right offset value should be positive and the left offset value should be negative. Okay, so this can be tricky to figure out and use. So you just need to have a play around with those numbers to try to choose the right constraint. Now let's try out first with the top right arm, so the right shoulder connection. So I'm going to add a constraint. Deselect it first, sorry. So I shouldn't have the shoulder rotating much further past there. Okay, so from that point up to there, I'm going to say that's probably around 80 degrees clockwise. I'll try. So I don't want to rotate in more than 80 degrees clockwise. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's okay. And then come in anti-clockwise. Alright, I need it further than that. So I want it to come to about here. So again, I'll say that's roughly minus 80, minus 90. So I'll try minus 80. So let's try the same positive and negative. Right, clockwise, anti-clockwise. Yeah, so that looks good. Okay, so the right arm is done. Now what about the head? So the head should not be able to do this. So let's start with the neck, and I'm going to zoom in. Okay, so I'm going to make it equal right and left, and I don't want it to go further than about this angle here. So if I were to draw a line, sorry, I can't draw a line there. If I were to draw a line, it'd be to about these points here. So I'll say that's roughly, we'll try 70 degrees for the neck here. So constrain minus 70 and 70. Okay, yeah, I'm happy with that. Now the head, because the head can, so the neck is down, but the head can still rotate. And for the head, I'd say it's roughly the same actually. So I'm going to try minus 70 and 70. Oops. And let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks okay. Maybe a little bit too far. So I'll reduce it slightly. We'll try minus 50. Now as you can see, those values are different to the ones I entered. So sometimes Animate will change the values slightly. Okay, so it just takes a bit of playing around with. Actually, I think I'm going to reduce the neck. So we'll go from minus 50 and 50 for the neck. And then for the head, we'll reduce it further, so minus 40 and 40. Okay, so that's made it a bit better. Okay, forearms. Now, I think I'm going to keep the forearms as they are because we can rotate our forearms all the way around. And the same with our hands. We can put the hands in different positions. So keep them as they are. Now, what about the stomach? So from there, I shouldn't be able to do all that, should we? So this connection here, we're going to reduce. So I'll constrain that to about, well, it's giving me minus 45 and 45, so I'm going to actually try that. Yeah, that's okay, but I think I'll reduce it. Let's try minus 20 and 20. Okay. The pelvis. Well, that's locked if you remember, so we don't need to edit that. Now the upper leg. Okay, so that can go all the way around. It shouldn't be able to. So I'm going to choose the upper leg connection and constrain it. So how does 45 and 45 look by default? It's okay, I think we need a little bit more movement than that. So let's try minus 60 and 60. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that for the upper leg, and the connection to the pelvis. Do the same here. Constrain minus 60 and 60. Okay. Now let's move down to the knee. So this is going to be a bit more tricky because the knee shouldn't be able to go forwards at all. It shouldn't rotate. So the right knee here shouldn't be able to rotate clockwise. So I'm going to straight away make that 0. Good, so I can't move it clockwise forwards, but I can still go anti-clockwise, but that's not enough. So I'm going to make this about, let's try minus 100. No, it should go higher than that. So I'm going to go for minus 150. Yeah, that's better. Same on the other side, but reverse. So I'm going to left offset, so anti-clockwise rotation is 0, and clockwise rotation is 150. Okay, yeah, that's good. Now what about the feet, so the ankles? They shouldn't be able to go all the way around. So let's have a look. Up to the, so the clockwise I think is a little bit high, but there I'm going to reduce the clockwise rotation. So the right from 45 will take down to about 30, and then the left will make a bit less constrained, so we'll go for about minus 60. Okay, I'm happy with that, and we'll try the same on the other side. So we had 30 clockwise minus 60 anti-clockwise. So we'll try the same here. So minus 30 and 60. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so we'll zoom out and just have a quick play around with it, with all the parts of the body. See if there's any rotations we're not happy with. Now, I know that elbow and hand, looks a little bit funny there, but if you think about the positions we can put our elbow in, okay, we can rotate all the way around, and then our hand. Okay, so you just decide on yours whether you need to constrain or not. I'm happy to keep mine as they are. Okay, that does need constraining because it's pinned. I'm okay with that movement. Yeah, so I'm thinking that everything else is yeah, I'm happy with all. It's all looking okay. Okay, so we've just used the constrain option on the joint rotation to manipulate the bone connections to make them look a bit more lifelike with regards to a human movement.